You're listening to On the Road, a law enforcement journey. Hear from those currently on the force while getting an insider view from what it takes to become a law enforcement officer. Hey, welcome to episode number 11 of On the Road, a law enforcement journey. I'm your host, Jeremy Tormala. So episode number 11, we're going to do a recap of week 7. We're already 7 weeks into this academy. It's going by super fast. I think I say that every week. Seems like I set my alarm, I go to sleep, I wake up, and then it's Friday, and we repeat the cycle all over again. Our practical segment for this week is going to cover first aid, and our fitness segment is going to talk about warm-ups and stretching, which is very underrated in a lot of training populations and probably one of the most important things you can be doing prior to training. That includes PT, for the academy or training yourself as well. So let's get started. So week 7 was a 5-day training week. We had our Friday as a makeup day for the snow day from the previous week. So Monday I was excited about. I got to lead PT for the morning. That was my wheelhouse, my comfort zone. So I was excited to be able to do that. And we'll talk more about this in the fitness segment, but my responsibility was primarily teaching the different variations of stretching and taking everybody through a warm-up and a workout through calisthenics, dynamic stretching, and static stretching. Again, I'll talk more about what each of those are in our fitness segment. Calisthenics is pretty much what everybody does, military, the tactical population. It's just anything that's body weight can be considered calisthenic exercise. Again, it was very fun for me. I enjoyed it. Our workout. So here's what I did for our workout. Now, is it the most ideal thing? No, but it was to kind of give an idea of something you can design and for the other recruits too that you can do with your body weight while getting some quality training. Again, the big word right there, quality training, not just running people into the ground. So here's what we did. We did this all as a group: 20 jumping jacks, 10 push-ups, 5 squat jumps, full court sprint, and then we held for 30 seconds a hip lift. So that's when you're laying on your back, you squeeze your glutes, you lift your hips up, you hold it for 30 seconds and focus on your breathing. We did 3 total rounds of that. And then we had a little bit of leftover time, so our drill sergeant had us do some more stuff, and then we ended with our static stretching. On Monday, our class section, we did PBT, so preliminary breath testing, for the first few hours. That was a lot of fun. I got to practice on each other and see the different 2 different devices that you can use. One of them is kind of outdated and has been replaced by, I think it's called the FC10. But it's very, very fun block. Again, all this stuff that's very hands-on and deals a lot with the actual police work is a lot of fun. For myself, makes the day goes by really fast. The other classes we had, processing property and sexual assault investigation. Now, sexual assault, we're getting in a lot of this stuff now with handling juveniles and sexual assault and CSC stuff. That stuff really bothers me, especially as a parent, that there's people out there willing to do that. And the scary thing is it's so prevalent. So I think that's going to be kind of one of my niches that I'm going to try to specialize in once I get on the road, because there is a zero tolerance for any of that kind of behavior. It's totally unacceptable in our society. Then we ended the day, which was weird to have this subject control. So we did our last 4 hours of the day with that. It actually made the day go by a little bit better because faster, because I think we did our 2 hours. We had our half-hour dinner break, and then we had the next 2 hours. So having to split up like that went by really fast compared to having all 7 or 8 hours just straight in a row. Our subject control, we did a lot of revisiting the practical portions of things because that's coming up soon. So again, going over strikes, pressure points, the joint locks, and handcuffing. So handcuffing from the prone, kneeling, speed cuffing, that type of stuff. We also did scenarios. Yeah, maybe we did. I don't remember. I think we did a little bit of scenarios. I know we did the other day, which I'll get to. We also talked a lot about officer and subject responses for escalation of force or force response. So the five variations. So a subject response or how they handle a situation. You got your inactive resistance, passive resistance, active aggression, and then deadly force assault. So that's pretty much how a subject responds to a situation, and people people in situations with police officers, they're pretty much ones that are responsible of how a scenario or situation escalates or de-escalates. An officer just kind of responds to what they're doing. Now, from the officer standpoint, you got the presence, your verbal instructions, then you got your compliance controls, physical controls, your intermediate controls, which is like your baton strikes and stuff like that, and then deadly force response. So you're responding to a deadly force assault. So they coincide with each other. So subjects being inactive or whatever, then you use those controls just to give an idea. I hope that makes sense. Those are very important to understand because you have to be able to articulate how you respond to situations, especially if for some reason or another it ends up going towards deadly force. You have to be able to articulate why you felt that was necessary. Or anytime you put hands on somebody, you have to be able to articulate that. It's very important. You just can't show up to a scene and start taking people down within reason. So Tuesday morning, we did Pnf stretching. Again, I'll talk more about this on our fitness segment, but Pnf stretching is for it's contract relax, but often used as a partner for it. So partner assisted stretching. And then we did box drills. And by box drills, I don't mean box jumps. We did like sit ups with our feet elevated up on a box, step ups. So I guess I won't even consider step ups. It's like more run ups, run down, run up, run down, and then push ups. So feet elevated, or you go hands elevated, push ups. We did that for the rest of the time. We had subject control again. Went over again the handcuffing. Make sure everybody's getting better at that. Escort holds, joint locks, and takedowns. Revisiting all the different takedowns. The wrist lock takedown, shoulder takedown, straight arm takedown, inside takedown, rear sentry takedown. There's a lot of them. And then this day, so Tuesday, we did a lot of scenario training, which was fun, very interesting. Again, some of the scenarios are fun, but it's also kind of scary because when you're going full out 100%, that's when injuries can happen. But it's at least when you're going 100% like that, in some aspect, it's relatable to what might happen on the road because you have to try to go to whatever tools are in that box that you've just learned and try to handle the situation. Now, it's a little bit harder because all of our instructors are very good at defense tactics. They've been teaching it or doing it themselves for many years, but still makes it fun to be able to handle those situations. We had victims' rights, I believe. I have victims' rights because that's what the schedule is supposed to be, but I think from our snow day, we talked more about, it was more about interpersonal skills, excuse me. So interpersonal skills. Again, we talked about that in the previous podcast, your ability to interact with the population and why that's so important and the different methods of doing that. And then later in the day, we did dealing with juvenile offenders, which is in many aspects quite different from handling adult population. So being familiar what the differences are, and a lot of it's terminology and not housing in adult populations and what the process is for dealing with a juvenile, their different system compared to an adult court system. Very interesting, and definitely kind of more eye open to what these kids go through, especially the situations in which many of them grow up in. It's not setting them up for successful situations or giving them an environment to succeed. Not saying that's impossible because there definitely are situations where people come out, adapt and overcome and flourish and don't want to have a life like that for their kids or themselves. So once they get that freedom to be able to make those choices, that's what they do. But it is very sad to see those situations. And I mean, a lot of juvenile offenders come from abusive homes or single parent homes. And I mean, that's been huge in the last couple of years and several people have said this. I can't say names because I don't want to, but at the same time, it's some of them are having a brain fart on. But the number one indicator of success, and this comes from family, financial, all them aspects, is did you grow up in a 2-parent household? Very important, and it's very undervalued, especially in today's society. And I don't think people realize how damaging that is. I'm not saying if you have a crap parent and they're not getting along that, oh, you just need to tough it out because, oh, we'll provide a better life for our kid. I'm not saying that, but people are so quick to go to a divorce or separate or be abusive in front of their kids, or, God forbid, abuse their kids. It just repeats that cycle, because when you show your kids something or teach them something, or they see what's happening in a household, they think that's right because their brain's not fully developed. They can't understand fully the reasoning between right and wrong, or why my dad or my mom beat on each other, stuff like that. So they grow up thinking that's normal, and then hence the process continues, and we all know that's not normal. So it's hard to view everybody, especially like juvenile offenders, and go, oh, criminal, whatever. You got to have, again, going back to interpersonal skills or whatever, understanding, empathy, compassion, stuff, because you got to put yourself in some aspects to what other people are going through to really understand their behavior. It's not giving a pass at it like, oh, okay, well, you grew up in a household, a harsh home, go do whatever you want. It's not saying that either, but you can at least understand, all right, well, I can see why this person made this decision. It's not the best thing for them, but maybe going through the process, they'll find out that there's better things for them if they make the right decisions. And having somebody that cares, huge. I'll get off on that box for a little bit now. So Wednesday we did PT, we did sprints, line drills, planks, and running afterwards. So slow pace running for laps. What I mean by line drills is kind of like suicides, but it's not a full traditional suicide. If you don't know what a suicide is, it's like, say, a basketball court, you sprint to the free throw line, sprint back to the baseline, sprint the half court, sprint back to the baseline. That's a suicide. Line drills are, we do 5 push-ups on the baseline, sprint to the next white line, do 5 push-ups, repeat all the way down to the court. So that's what line drills are. We also do squats as well as variation. Wednesday morning, report writing. I love writing. It's very important in the law enforcement profession. When I was a military police officer, that was also huge. I mean, you type up a case, even if you thought you did well, it would come back red inked all over the place. If you have a bad report, you're going to fail a case or throw out a case, and you don't want to let somebody who deserves to be confined in jail or prison, and then their case gets dismissed because you as a police officer did a half-assed job on your report writing. It makes or breaks a case, and also makes you look competent if you can write a detailed report. One thing they definitely hit for us, which I really like, is the importance of having your body cam running and all that stuff, but you want to make sure they correlate with each other, because you don't want to go strictly from memory and have your report say something different than what the dashboard or what your body cam shows, because then it's going to make you look like you're lying. And once you lose your integrity in this profession, you have nothing. So better safe than sorry. Document everything. Go by your notes. Detail everything. As a military police officer, it was everything story-based, chronological order. So I want you to tell me, if this was dealing with a victim or whatever, I want you to tell me a story, everything that happened. Don't leave out the details. So, and then you just let them tell, and then you come up with any questions as they're talking that they may have forgotten, and put that out. It was the same thing as writing a report. Literally from the time you got dispatched to the time you arrived, location, and then you got your who, what, why, where, when, and how, that type of stuff. And you just don't do you don't leave one not answered, and you also don't just do a general synopsis. I mean, it's detailed. That way, when prosecutor or whatever gets the report, or even a defense attorney gets the report, and they see how detailed it is, and oh crap, all right, well, there's really not a whole room for error on getting this one thrown out. It's important. And I'm sure a lot of people on the actual road right now can probably vouch for that. Those who are not good at report writing compared to those who do, how often their cases get thrown out, and their credibility as a police officer is so important. We had first aid, so this is our first time dealing with police first aid, which I really liked. We did a lot of that when I was in the military again. I mean, we did extensive stuff in the military, giving each other IVs, splints, chest, treating sucking chest wounds, everything and anything we did in the military. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in our practical situation on why that's important to have some of those drills, or not drills, but understanding of how to apply those things, but the importance of paying attention, because those small little things can be life-saving. And I got a practical segment that actually happened to my squad, and the good thing, the good and bad about what happened in that situation. Again, we'll get to that down the road. But our first aid basics, all right? So we just cover the basics of your ABCs, so your airway, breathing, circulation, that type of stuff. So making sure you're always evaluating those when you first arrive on scene. What else do we talk about there? Oh, talking to patients. So again, interpersonal skills, being able to identify yourself as a police officer, and just be able to talk to a patient to calm them down if they need it, depends on what the situation was. And then we went through various different scenarios to work on specifically those skills, talking to patients to calm them down and be able to identify where an injury was until EMS arrives. So that was our first day. Basic stuff. After first day, we went back into sexual assault investigation. Again, really hits home. I won't elaborate on that more. It definitely hits home, and I think that's why it's interesting to me. But I also take that a lot more seriously. It really drives me nuts to know how many people out there take advantage of others for no reason. Thursday, we had first aid in the morning. We did more on having detailed examinations or rapid evaluations of a patient when you arrive on scene. It's pretty common sense. If you got somebody bleeding out, so if they got, their femur is gushing blood, well, that's a rapid evaluation. Where a primary injury or a priority injury is. You need to take care of that before you can further assess, because they'll bleed out and die much, much quicker than, say, somebody who has a broken arm. You still want to treat that, but you can do a more detailed evaluation of the suspect, or not the suspect, but the victim when you arrive on scene. And we did more scenarios, which were fun, covering applying tourniquets, pressure bandages. And that's where our scenarios often involved, was being able to apply the pressure bandages. Tourniquets are very important. They look very simple, but you need to have an understanding how to apply that. Tourniquet is very simple tool that can save so many people's lives when they're applied properly. So again, when you're going through these classes or training, you can't tune yourself out and go, oh, this is easy stuff, because when you actually have to come down to it in that situation, and you're fumbling with your fingers and going, oh, shit, what do I do? You don't want to be in that situation, because then it's going to be, well, you had training in it, didn't you? Yeah, but I didn't pay attention. I mean, if you're being honest. So get your hands on. Practical. I love that stuff. This stuff's a little bit more intriguing to me, because it's, maybe intriguing is the wrong word, but I enjoy it, because it's not to the extent what the military was. And military, I understand, because we are going to a combat environment. You need to be able to help treat severe casualties or people in dire circumstances, because most of us only had one medic at a time. So if shit hits the fan and you're down several people, you want to be able to help your medic out and not leave the whole mess to them. But this is more about the basics of getting the patient calmed down and the basic treatments until EMS or fire can arrive to take more better care, or take over and give them more advanced care until they get to the hospital. Thursday, we had victims' rights again. Yeah, we started victims' rights. And we had more on juvenile offenders for a couple hours. And our criminal law, we did admissions and confessions, which this is the meat and potatoes of a lot of the important stuff. covering the Miranda rights and what's admissible and not admissible in court. Very interesting. I say that word a lot. I mean, again, everything we're doing right now is just very intriguing, interesting, and I love learning about it because it's primarily heavily involved in what we're going to be doing after the academy. And we just finished week 7. That ball is coming rather quickly. It's going to be here before we know it. Friday was our makeup day. PT, we did a lot of drill and ceremony. So before our first class every day, we were supposed to be saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And can you take a guess? Had we been doing it or not? We haven't been. A lot of it we had a misunderstanding. From my standpoint, is I thought we were supposed to be doing it before we did PT every morning. So when we weren't doing it, I'm just like, oh, well, okay, maybe that's not happening this cycle or this academy. Well, our drill sergeant stayed one day. I think it was last Monday or on Monday or Tuesday, one of the first days of the training week. And we literally go in there and he's got like a big smile on his face. Just like, we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance, aren't we? And we all kind of look at each other like, oh, crap. And we all said it, and then just like, oh boy, we're gonna get our asses handed to us the next day at PT because we haven't been doing it. And well, it's very clear that we weren't. But Friday was our first probably like 30 minutes of our PT session was literally standing outside, drilling ceremony, going over the Pledge of Allegiance. I can't tell you how many times we recited it as a class over and over and over and over again. So now guarantee it we'll be saying it before classes start. Well, now that we know for sure we're supposed to. And, I guess on us, we should have clarified that. So we'll take the blame for that and own up to that. Yeah, and then we did some running afterwards with our duty belts on, which I find I'd rather be wearing our duty belts pretty much for everything because on the road you're gonna have it on you. So anytime we're doing run sprints, push-ups, and any of that stuff, I wish we'd do PT the entire time with our duty belts on, because there's a huge difference from doing a sprint where you're wearing your tennis shoes and just a shirt and your joggers or your shorts compared to having your tactical boots on, your duty belt, your trousers, and your top, and wearing a vest. Completely different. So we should be train how you fight. That's what we did in the military a lot too. I'm not saying every day needs to be that way because it's the same thing with subject control. You don't want to hurt somebody where they can't finish the academy. But enough times a week where you can still be able to build up that tolerance to getting what it feels like to wear all of your gear during physical training or having to chase a subject down or subdue a subject. So that's what we do in subject control. We have our duty stuff on all the time, which makes sense. I mean, when you get thrown down on the ground, you have your duty belt on, you land on your pistol, it hurts like hell, but it's a different experience than just not having your duty belt on when you don't get to experience that. Our running outside, we had everything on because it's 18 degrees outside, which even a slow-paced jog, you'll feel it in your lungs, still all that cold air. Again, I love PT, so I'm not going to complain about that. I love it. We did traffic law. Our traffic law was about primarily writing citations, and it's been a long time since I've written anything in a ticket book. Again, it was military, and that was 12 years ago, and it was even longer because my last 6 months in the military, I didn't work the road at all because we just got back from Baghdad, and I was getting ready to start the entire exit processing for the military. I did all the scenario training, so I pretty much acted like a bad guy for everybody else that was getting trained to go on the road. But ticket writing, once you mess up on a ticket, that whole ticket is voided. So it's how many? I'll admit that too. Probably went to 2 or 3 tickets for one scenario because I kept messing it up, which is fine. It's a learning environment. Rather get through all that now and hash out all the nuances and become more effective at that. It's just a small piece, but it's still fun. Again, I enjoy any of that police-related work. It's cool, good stuff. The afternoon, we had victims' rights again, but we had a group come in from the Victim Services Unit, the VSU. So they were advocates. This was pretty It was a great block. I really think so. I mean, that's my opinion. We only had them for 45 minutes to an hour in that block. I wish we'd had it longer because it was three older ladies and they very much enjoyed speaking about their experiences at all the different situations that they've went to. And they should be able to talk about all that stuff. It was not saying they rushed out the door and all that stuff, but to give them a little bit more time to be able to talk about their experiences, because once you get people talking about that, and I don't know how often they actually get to talk to other people about things they went through, but it was learning experience on our part. So if you don't know what VSU or Victim Services Unit is, pretty much they come out anytime you're dealing with victims. And this could be from domestic assault, domestic violence, a drowning or suicide. So they get notified by the police. Some areas they already have it when an officer gets dispatched that they're automatically, the VSU unit is already automatically notified. So they show up on scene strictly just to be there for the victims. This is being a shoulder to cry on or gather a little bit of information so that us as police officers can continue to do our work, like securing the crime scene or gathering information related to what happened without having to worry about trying to balance two stones. So you're trying to comfort a family while also trying to do your job. So that was the importance about that aspect to it. I was just blown away. Again, they're older ladies and they enjoyed sharing their stories. It was phenomenal to hear their experiences on how they were able to help other people going through hard times, and it allowed the law enforcement to do their jobs, working as a team. Really awesome. So next week coming up, just for our week 8, that's would technically be our halfway hump, but we actually get a spring break, which is going to be interesting. Next week we have a lot of subject control, first aid, thorough report writing again, which is very important to develop those skills, hone the skills to write a detailed and informative report, and laws of arrest for criminal law. Looking forward to all that stuff. We're getting OC sprayed March 24th. I'm looking forward to that day as well. Did that in the military. Not a fun experience. I'm more so looking forward to watching my fellow recruits getting sprayed. I think that's going to be fun. And getting our asses kicked after we get sprayed. So our practical segment is on first aid. I'm going to start off with the situation I talked about when I was in the military. It was shortly after we went through all of our first aid training, preparing us for our deployment overseas. Again, we went through everything from giving IVs, treating sucking chest wounds, splints, all that type of stuff. We were trained in all of that. So we were out for our 2 weeks of training in the desert. I was a sergeant at the time, so I was the second in command, and then we had our squad leader, and we were doing Ied Recovery Drills. So IEDs are roadside bombs, so how to recover a vehicle or casualties after they've been hit by a roadside bomb. Well, we just had our lunch break, and we had 3 vehicles. I honestly don't remember if it was a 3 or 4 vehicle convoy. I think I'm pretty sure it was 3, but we were going down a steep hill that goes from dirt right into gravel, and the front vehicle, front Humvee, which had our squad leader in it, was going a little too fast, and the gunner wasn't secured. Not his fault, but he didn't have his harness on, and the Humvee rolled over. And I remember I was the second vehicle just watching him literally get ejected from the turret, and the Humvee just rolled. It didn't roll over on top of him, which thankfully would have killed him. But it was right away, oh shit factor. And I remember just yelling at the driver, because I don't know, we had phones on us at that time, but in desert, and if I was going to just say, hey, call 911. I got out of the vehicle before it even stopped moving. And I ended up, it's funny now to look back on some of these situations, because I know what happened. Everything turned out all right, but ended up taking off out of the vehicle before our Humvee came to a stop, and I completely end up eating it and rolling down the hill and stuff. But we got down there, and the soldier was on the ground. His helmet had a crack in it. I mean, his nose was bleeding. Looked down, his shoulder was pressed down. So what I mean by pressed down is like his shoulder was more towards his chest and just spurting blood. Then you do more of an assessment, look down his hand, and then you can see his hand was almost completely severed. And a few inches away from where the rest of his arm was kind of like, oh shit, this is really bad. We're out in a freaking desert. Right now, we don't even know where we are. We can't just go, oh yeah, we're at this training location that we were on a road, and now we got potentially multiple injuries. Though this one was the most severe one, but we also had another female who had back pain and stuff, and she was just laying outside of the Humvee. So our soldiers, they got right to it. They paid right attention because the squad leader and myself grabbed the map, grabbed our radios, and got to try right to figuring out where the hell are we so we can call a 9-line medevac is. If you don't know what a 9-line medevac is, 9-line is calling for your helicopters and stuff to come do an evacuation, a medical evacuation, that way to get to a treatment center A as soon as possible. But obviously, one of those lines are you need exact location. So we were working on that, and our soldiers, and it goes to that they were paying attention. They took our first aid training seriously because they were able to get an IV, get everything set up, stop the bleeding on this soldier. And I remember going just once we got the 9-line called out, running over to go check on him, and he was even cracking jokes. Again, he was in shock, obviously, when you're telling jokes and all that stuff. You're in shock, and he didn't know the extent of his injuries. And this goes on the importance of first aid. Like if you see something like that, do not tell that person about their injuries, because if they're not in shock, you are going to send them into shock that much quicker, or you're going to make them freak out. And we do not want that to happen. If the victim is calm, do not do anything that's going to change that situation, because it keeps everybody else calm. If you got somebody freaking out, oh my God, my arm, you think the people trying to, that aren't experts in the medical field trying to give an IV or a tourniquet are going to be able to maintain their calmness? Probably not. So we got everybody situated. We got them out on so the two casualties, the female, and in this one, we got them up on litters. A fly zone, so where helicopters got a designated zone where helicopters could land. And I'll tell you right now, it seemed like the longest wait ever, waiting to hear the sound of those two Blackhawks. But when we could hear them off at a distance, it was so relieving, because it's like, holy crap, finally, like that, everything is going to be all right. And this was in training, and that made it much more bitter, because we were training to deploy overseas. And this soldier, I remember getting them carrying the litter, putting them on a Black Hawk helicopter, and so him saying something along his line, "This is supposed to happen happen in Iraq," and that was heartbreaking. This soldier was a true trooper. Like, he was always asking questions. He was wanting to learn. He was probably one of the best soldiers in our group and all that stuff. And in that aspect, he was a hard worker and all that stuff. So to have that happen and know that his military career is essentially over, it's still speechless now. Like, it was a shit situation, but it could have been a lot worse. And thankfully, everything turned out all right. And he's the type of person, when he got better and when he got released from the hospital, he was running around joking about his injury and quote unquote stump punching people and stuff like that. So there's a reason things happen. And I think some people have those situations happen to them because they are the ones that are capable of overcoming those injuries. Again, had things been done differently and proper PPE and checks been done, that could have been preventable. But when it comes to something like a gunner's harness, and this is getting a little bit more detailed, especially if nobody has been in the military before, I do not agree with the gunner's harness. So if it was my gunner, I would have bitten the bullet for that, because my gunner wouldn't have been wearing that damn harness either. Honestly, if he was wearing that harness, it probably would have killed him. But off of that soapbox, so that's just the importance. The main part of that story is just to take any of the training important. Take it seriously, because you never know when you're going to need it. You'd rather be kind of proficient and have an understanding and be confident in your basic skills than kind of just sleep through a class and then have shit hit the fan, and then you look incompetent because you don't know what to do. You don't want to be, especially now in the day and age where there's cameras everywhere. We did, we didn't talk about CPR yet, but all of us are already CPR certified. I want to talk about this later on down the road, because I already know of several people who've already had to do this in real life, and probably vastly different than a dummy. I mean, duh, common sense. But I've never done CPR on an actual person before. But that's another one where, especially in this career, is a difference maker. You can literally give somebody a second shot at life. I've said it before on the last podcast, you can't put a price on that. Not saying looking for pats on the back, like, oh, look at me, look what I did. I saved this person, bro. No, it's not that. But that was one of the selling points of wanting to come in this career, is to make a difference in the community and make a difference in somebody's life. Like that there is no greater service to God and humanity than being able to help other people without even guessing or like thinking about your own wants and needs. It's crazy. I know it doesn't always work out that way, but you have that ability to be able to be there and at least give some sort of comfort that you made an attempt to help that person out. People skills with first aid, we talked about already with this earlier, but people skills, again, calming people down, being able to relate to them and take control of the situation until EMS or fire can get there. Tourniquets, pressure bandages. What else do I got there? Yeah, stabilize the situation, stabilize the scene. That's so important, and can't say that enough. And going back to that military situation, and that's just one situation I experienced in the military. All right, there was many of them I could talk about, even in my role as a police officer in the military. But the public relies on you, and if you can't do the basics, such as a tourniquet or a pressure bandage, something like that, shouldn't be on the road, and that would be a scary thing to see a video of somebody out there not trusting their skills and they don't do anything, and it unfortunately leads to somebody having a health issue or losing their life because of that. Our instructor actually said, he obviously didn't give a name on an officer, but he said the frustrating thing is every time there's a medical call, when EMS arrives on scene, this patrol officer is literally just sitting in his car. It's like, how do you do that as a person, like, to at least get a scene started, like secured, or at least treating a victim started for EMS? Like that would just drive me nuts. I don't know how, as a police officer, you can do that on a day-to-day basis, knowing that, well, this is part of my role, my responsibility, but I'm not going to do it. Like that's not cool. And that's completely against pretty much any core value a department probably has out there. So enough on that. Let's get to our fitness segment here. Fitness segment is the importance of warm-ups and stretching. And I myself, when I can, is 15 to 20 minutes of a warm-up before I even touch a weight. And that's how all of our athletes were trained, because warm-ups, if you failure to do an improper warm-up and you're not doing it all, the chance of injury goes that much higher. So think about your tendons and your ligaments as like a cold rubber band. If I go to stretch it, which is what happens during exercise, right? Your ligaments and your tendons stretch to help produce force. Well, if I'm stretching that rubber band and it's cold, what's going to happen? It's going to snap. We don't want that to happen. No, that's an oversimplification of things, but it helps kind of paint a picture for that. The younger you are, again, the more you can kind of get away with it. But the older you are definitely going to start to feel that. And it's so important to do that, which is what I liked about Monday when I led PT, because I was able to take everybody through a warm-up that's much different than what we normally do. So warm-up, in essential, the goal of a warm-up is to prepare the body for training. And this is done by increasing heart rate, blood flow, core body temperature, which helps with oxygen dissociation. I won't get into that because that's too quote unquote scientific. And your neural firing. So you're preparing your nervous system for activity. You're not going to be like brain farted or not awake while you go through training. That's pretty much what I mean. So why is this important? Two big things: injury prevention and performance. A proper warm-up will help you train better. Not just saying that because of bro science, it's scientifically proven. Same with injury prevention. So warm-up consists of calisthenics, which calisthenics, again, can be any body weight exercise: push-ups, pull-ups, squat jumps, body weight squats. Any of those are considered calisthenics. So same with skips, because we use a lot of skips. So your A skips, B skips, C skips, skipping heel taps, skipping arm swings, that type of stuff. Dynamic stretching and prep exercises. All of these should be done before you even start physical training. So dynamic stretching is full body stretching, more often than not full body stretching, but it's stretching utilizing movement that takes joints to a full range of motion, or attempted full range of motion. I'm going to talk about other types of stretching afterwards that should be done after training, and that's Pnf and your static stretches. But dynamic stretching is slow and controlled, multi-joint through a large range of motion. It's also mobility, so it helps improve mobility, not flexibility, mobility. Prep exercises, these are to prepare the body for training. So what's different between prep exercises, your calisthenics, and your dynamic stretches is prep kind of mimics your training. So this could be like build-up sprints, jumps to potentiate the nervous system to be fired and ready to go for training. I hope that makes sense. So after your dynamic and your prep would come the workout. I don't have a workout on here. So my example will just be giving a example of a proper warm-up. You can Google or YouTube those, but so you'll get an idea just what I'm talking about. But if you actually want to see what one looks like, just go to YouTube or Google. So you do the workout, and then afterwards you do your static stretching, which are just holds, hence the name static. It's not moving. And Pnf. Pnf is proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. Sounds fancy. It's contract, relax, or quote unquote partner assisted more often than not. And this is to improve mobility and flexibility. So I'm going to go through, I'll give an example of those after I give the example of the practical warm-up here. So let's just start from the start. All right. So calisthenics. So the first thing I do when I want to lead a warm-up or do a warm-up is get the heart rate up, again, to increase body core temperature, neural firing, all that fun stuff. So we do 25 to 30 yards, or we just go to half court. Not all the time. This is when I did it. All right. So I'm not going to give the exact exercises because I can't remember them offhand, but just give you an idea. So here's an example of some exercises. Forward jog. Again, every one of these is for 25 to 30 yards. Backwards jog. Karaoke or karaoke, however you want to say it. You go left and right. Cross body jog. You're just running, crossing your feet in front of each other. It looks ridiculous, but very beneficial. Gallops. Skipping arm swings. So after the heart rate gets up a little bit and you get a little bit of loose from that, then we go to our dynamic stretch. And again, we got increased blood flow, increased heart rate, increased core body temperature. So now our muscles are primed. We can take them through a little bit greater range of motion. So we do that by dynamic stretching. So moving multi-joint through a full or a greater range of motion than seen with static stretching. This is the same thing, 25 to 30 yards. So we do one leg at a time or one movement, and then you take 3 small steps in between, and then you do to the opposite side. So a common one, knee hugs. So come up on your tippy toes, you hug your right knee to your chest, go back down, you take 3 steps, you hug your left knee up to your chest, and you repeat that cycle until you reach 25 to 30 yards. Ankle pulls, heel scoops, T-spine rotation, quad pulls, cross ankle toe, hip lifts, and your 90-90 mobility positions for hip mobility. I'm not going to go into detail on that stuff. You can Google, YouTube that stuff, but that's all dynamic stretching. So after you do all that, we do our prep stuff. Our prep, you can keep it as simple as just 1 or 2 exercises. Squat jumps, 5 squat jumps, and then a half court sprint. The body's primed, ready to go. So we got calisthenics, dynamic, your prep. Then we go into our actual workout because your body's primed, ready to go. You got blood flow, mobility going. So you do your actual physical training session. Afterwards, here's where you do static stretching. We always do static stretching prior, and that's just kind of how we done day one. Again, I got the exercise background, so it's easy for me to kind of pick everything apart. But static stretching always should be after your training session. You don't have to worry about getting the heart rate and stuff up because you just finished training. So now we want to improve flexibility. So we're holding a muscle in the desired range of motion for a length of time. All right, anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds. I like using breathing. Breathing is so important to calm your body down. So we do a deep inhale through the nose and we do an exhale through the mouth. Parasympathetic, so it's to calm your body down. So if you're constant in that fight or flight mode, you're constantly stressing your body out while you're training, it's not doing you any good. So focus on your breathing when you get this opportunity. So an example of static stretching routine could be a lateral lunge. Again, you try to get as low as you can. You hold that for 5 controlled breaths on each side. Overhead tricep, lateral, or a lat stretch. The most common one, that's the one where you see people feet shoulder width apart with the elbow over their head and they're pushing down on their elbow. Make sure you're not pulling on the back of your head. We don't want that either. Same concept, 5 breaths on each side. Cross body shoulder, another one we did in the military. So I take my right arm, move it to my left shoulder, keep my arm straight. I put my left arm behind the right elbow and I hold it that and I pull so I get a stretch on the back of my shoulder. And then butterfly we use for the groin. That's just a small example. You could do more exercises. And then Pnf stretching. I did this a lot for our hockey guys because you get super tight in the hamstrings and hockey players a lot in the lower back. But Pnf, again, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. You can Google on YouTube. It's contract, relax. So proprioceptors are in your muscles. They sense tension and relaxation. So we use that contract, relax to get greater mobility or flexibility out of doing these movements. So I'm going to use a basic one. So imagine I got a person laying on the ground, just laying flat on their back on the ground. It's a supine position. So I want to stretch out their right hamstring. I'm going to straddle over their left leg while keeping their right leg straight. I'm going to put their right foot or the right heel on top of my shoulder. I'm going to press my body weight on their left leg because if that leg comes off the ground, I am not going to be able to stretch out the right leg properly. So once I'm holding that down, I'm going to keep their right leg straight while standing up, and they're going to tell me when they feel moderate discomfort. If you got really bad mobility, it's not going to take you much at all to feel that. So you're going to hold that position for anywhere from 6 to 10 seconds, and then you're going to instruct the person on the ground, so the person you're stretching, to push against you for 6 seconds. Nice slow 6 seconds, actively push. Again, we're contracting, so recruiting muscles, muscle fibers, and increasing tension in the muscles. Then you have them relax, and then you go another 10 seconds. You should be able to get greater range of motion. So I'm going to stand up even further. Same concept. They tell me when they can't, when they feel moderate discomfort, and we repeat that process. You switch to the other leg. That's what PNF or proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation is. Very beneficial training, good for increasing mobility and flexibility. That comes after training or after a warm-up. So if you go through a warm-up and somebody's like, man, my hammies are really tight on me, like I can't get to the positions that I need to be able to get, run them through a PNF stretch. That might help them up a little bit. So that's pretty much what a proper warm-up should look like. We don't do it, and that's just because we're an academy. I have that background knowledge, so it's easy for me to go, well, this is what we should be doing. I don't get why we're doing this. I'm not complaining about it. I love everything we do. I love PT, but my background, I would do things quite a bit differently. If you're doing as a law enforcement officer, so if you're full-time already on the road and you do your own training, don't just walk into the weight room and start lifting. I'm going to tell you right now, you are a dumbass if you do. You're going to get hurt eventually, especially as you get older. Prepare your body for it. Get a good training session in. Make sure you stretch afterwards. Remember, the community, the public, your partners, your department. Everybody's relying on you to do your job. And if you hurt yourself over something stupid, you're affecting more than just you. So that's just another importance of it. That's all I got for today's show. Again, next week, the next couple weeks is getting really busy for us before we have our spring break, between practical exams, criminal law exams, and we got our pepper spray and all that stuff coming up. Looking forward to all that stuff. I'm going to embrace the suck. If you're going through an academy, getting ready to go through an academy, or if you're a law enforcement officer and you want to come on and talk about your experiences, or when I'm talking about our weekly recaps, if you have some information you want to throw in there so we can make it a discussion about that, I would love to do that. Reach out to me, ontheroadlaw@gmail.com, or reach out to me on any of the social media. I got social media all over on the website, so just click on one of those links and it'll take you to the page. Questions, comments, concerns, please write out to me. God bless, guys. Have a great rest of the weekend. See you soon. Thank you for listening to On the Road, a law enforcement journey. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or would like to be on the show, email me at ontheroadlaw@gmail.com. And please share this podcast. Thank you.